Good American Family Episode 6 gets an A for an emotional but hopeful episode review. Last week's episode of Good American Family on Hulu was a difficult one to watch, seeing Natalia struggle all alone living by herself now. And even when she tries to make things right, somehow they get worse. Well, that continues in episode 6 this week. However, there's a bit more hope when we reach the end. Here's our review of the episode. Spoilers below. The last time we saw Natalia, she was having trouble with the day-to-day, including getting the shower on, preparing food, and taking care of herself in general. And now that she's in the new home with so many stairs, something difficult in her condition, things are even worse. Plus, she needs to walk to school, and it's not an easy trek. The most difficult part is the blisters and injuries she gets from walking so much, which causes her feet to bleed. Then there's the fact that she's stopped in a rough part of the neighborhood, but that's when it seems like there's a saving grace. Natalia gets some help from Christina Hendricks. Christina Hendricks' character finally shows up in this episode, and she plays Cynthia Mans. As she's driving by, she spots Natalia and her bleeding feet and offers to help. She clearly has a light-hearted and fun personality, and Hendricks plays her so well. There's obviously something suspicious about Natalia and her situation, so she comes into her home and looks around. It's obvious she needs help, and so spotting the EBT card, offers to take her to the market. Now this is where things start to get a little murky when it comes to Cynthia. She invites Natalia to dinner at her home with her husband and kids and rings up a bunch of food and items. Then she tells Natalia since she's coming over, she can pay for it with her EBT card. This is one red flag. Now I don't know if Cynthia is trying to take advantage of a vulnerable Natalia or if she sees it more of a win-win situation. Natalia gets food, but so do her other kids. As we learn later, money is tight for the Mans family, and Natalia may actually be their saving grace. When Natalia sees the warm and loving home, it's clear this is what she yearns for. You can see it all on her face. And I once again praise Imogen Reed's acting here. Cynthia takes Natalia to the doctor, and it turns out she gets disability checks too. But right now they're going to Christine and Michael. They get it changed to go to Cynthia. Again, another red flag or truly a way to help. But the doctor's visit confirms that Natalia really is a child based on her x-rays. And the doctor thinks that Cynthia and her husband are taking advantage of Natalia, so she calls in the investigator. And that's how he gets involved in her case in the first place. Finally, it's Halloween and Cynthia answers the number who keeps calling her. I think we all could guess it was going to be Christine. And lo and behold, it is. She's warning Cynthia about Natalia and trying to turn her against them. The poor girl clearly has PTSD. Natalia gets out of the car and runs away, and we see flashes of Christine slapping her, which are hard to watch. Then she's told to go walk it off, but without shoes. When she comes back, Natalia takes her socks off and hides the blood on them, and that explains the bloody socks in her closet. So my question now is, did Christine make her walk all the time on purpose to prove she was menstruating and fabricating lies? Eventually, Cynthia finds Natalia, and the two have a really sweet moment where they connect and make a promise to each other. Then, even though Natalia doesn't like baths, she agrees to one, and it's a really nice one between what a mother and daughter should look like. The episode ends on a hopeful note with Natalia smiling at her new family's church, declaring she's ready to testify. Not only at church, but against the Barnetts as well. This was another really strong episode of Good American Family. Episode 6 brought even more devastating emotion, moved the story along, but also ended on a bit of a hopeful note that we needed after all the heaviness of the past 5 episodes. I'll be honest, but the story being told from Natalia's point of view from the sphere of a television series is much more intriguing. And it's being done well. Also Hendrix as Cynthia. So good. She's one of my favorite actresses, so I'm excited she's now a part of the story. What is going to happen next? We'll find out next week. Episode grade level A. Episode 6 of Good American Family marks a major emotional turning point in the season. One that pulls no punches, yet delivers a deeply rewarding, surprisingly hopeful hour of television. If you've been keeping up with the Harper family's journey, then you know we've witnessed everything from divorce and displacement to identity struggles and generational conflict. But in this week's episode, titled After the Storm, the heart of the show beats louder than ever, and the writers hit their stride with remarkable finesse. Right from the cold open, we're thrown into a scene that sets the tone. Rain pours outside as the Harper family sits in tense silence at the dinner table. The events of the previous episode, namely Jordan's decision to move back home after dropping out of college, still hang heavy over the household. The normally spirited teenager is quiet, subdued, almost ghost-like, and the way the family orbits around his silence feels real and uncomfortably intimate. Credit goes to the show's star, Monica Raymond, Julia Harper, whose subtle expressions as she watches her son wrestle with failure are heartbreakingly honest. But what makes this episode stand out isn't just the raw emotion. It's the shift in perspective. For the first time, we're given a deeper look at the patriarch, Thomas Harper, played brilliantly by Mykelti Williamson, whose stoicism up until now has often felt like a barrier between him and the rest of his family. In After the Storm, Thomas finally cracks, just a little, and we're allowed into the tender vulnerability he's been guarding so tightly. A quiet moment between him and Jordan, sitting side by side on the back porch as the rain lets up, is a standout. Thomas doesn't lecture, doesn't offer answers. He just listens. That scene alone could win awards. Meanwhile, the subplot with Grandma Alma, Cicely Tyson's final posthumous performance, brought to life through a series of powerful flashbacks, adds a poetic layer to the story. Through old letters found in Alma's attic, Julia uncovers a forgotten chapter of her mother's past, a failed marriage, a child lost in infancy, and a strength that quietly carried her through. The letters parallel Julia's own journey, her struggles as a single mother trying to hold the family together, and become the emotional spine of the episode. The discovery of these letters also opens up an honest conversation between Julia and her daughter Ellie, who has been quietly questioning her own sense of identity. Ellie's storyline, previously relegated to the background, gets a well-deserved spotlight. Her conversations with her best friend Caden about coming out, self-doubt, and belonging feel authentic, layered, and timely. In particular, the scene where she opens up to her mom, unsure of what kind of reaction she'll receive, is one of the most quietly powerful moments of the season. Julia's tearful embrace, wordless but full of meaning, is a reminder that Good American Family knows exactly how to deliver emotional payoff without falling into melodrama. It's also worth mentioning that the show doesn't forget its humor, even in such a heavy episode. Uncle Darnell's awkward attempts at TikTok stardom inject just the right amount of levity, and the family's collective eye-rolling at his influencer breakfast challenge feels like a much-needed breath between the heavier beats. Good American Family excels when it balances the drama with moments of joy, and episode 6 handles that balance masterfully. By the episode's end, nothing is perfectly resolved. Jordan still hasn't figured out what comes next. Ellie is still navigating who she wants to be. And Thomas and Julia still bear the scars of their separation. But there's a sense of forward motion. Hope in this world doesn't come wrapped in neat packages. It arrives in tentative steps, in open conversations, in the quiet decision to try again. That's what makes the final scene so effective. The entire family gathered on the front porch, the sky finally clear, sharing a simple moment together. No grand speeches, just presence. What elevates episode 6 above others is how grounded it is. The writing is compassionate, the direction, by guest director Ava DuVernay, is patient and graceful, and the performances are some of the best of the season. The episode doesn't reach for cheap sentiment or over-explain its messages. Instead, it trusts its audience to feel, to interpret, and to connect. That trust pays off.